we've added some new functionality to the expression pedal jack. Now on the latest versions, you can use your expression pedal jack as another MIDI out. So you can use the multi-jack for MIDI out, but you can also use the expression pedal jack. On pedals that have more than one multi-jack, those multi-jacks all still work. For example, if you have a DMC-8 Gen3 or DMC-6, you can use the multi-jacks 1, 2, and 3 and the expression and the normal 5-pin MIDI out for a grand total of 5 MIDI outs on a single controller. On the DMC-3 and 4 and the DPC-5 Gen3, you can have 2 extra MIDI outs using the multi-jack, the red, and the expression, the black. So I've got this connected to a tonal recall and a Brothers from our good buddies at Chase Bliss Audio, and you can see we're able to bypass, change presets. We can control them independently. So A and B devices, we can tap to the tonal recall. And the next batch of changes has to do with the setup menu. So I'm going to go over the various setup options. I'm using a DMC-8 here. These are applicable to the DMC-6 and 8. Some of them are also applicable to the smaller controllers. So let's just walk through the various setup options and we'll cover over them. This is number of preset banks, number of devices, A through F. These are the driver selections for your 6 devices. Whether you want looper mode on, and if so, which device to use. This is the assign for the expression input, which is the black jack. Again, we have this new option MIDI, which we covered. We've got a new option for multi-jack 2. So if we go in here and look at this, we have MIDI, which we had before, toggle, 2 bank we had before. That's bank up and down using a 2-button foot switch. And we have this new one, this is 2 fave. This lets you hook up a 2-button momentary foot switch like our PBA EXP expander switch, or any of the Boss momentary foot switches, just a non-latching foot switch, to the white jack. And when you do this, you can set and save 2 different favorite sounds. The first favorite is the same favorite that you can access here, and the second favorite is a new one. So if you want to have a double switch, you can actually have a lead sound and a clean sound, or basically any 2 sounds you want, accessible from any bank, so you can always get to them. All right. TFS. This assigns what the tap foot switch does, which is on the DMC-6 is this lower right foot switch. On the DMC-8 we have a dedicated tap foot switch, and this menu is not that useful, but on the DMC-6 this is really cool. Let's show you what's in here. So we've got some kind of weird gobbledygook on the screen, PB, DB. Bear with me here, but P is the behavior of the foot switch in preset mode, and D is the behavior of the foot switch in device mode. So right now we have this set to preset mode, bank, device mode, bank. So in preset mode, this is going to go down a bank at a time, and in device mode, this is going to go down a device at a time. So this button in device mode will go A, B, C, D, E, F, and this button will go A, F, E, D, C, B, A, and go backwards. So this lets you go up and down a device instead of just having to go up continually and roll over. You can change this. So preset mode tap, device bank, preset bank, device tap, preset tap, device tap. So if you were on a 6 and you wanted this to be a tap tempo all the time, that's what you would select. On the 8, we recommend preset bank, device bank. That makes this a bank all the time because you have a tap foot switch over here that's dedicated. Okay, clock, tap channels, favorite, fave channels, display brightness, input channel. This is applicable to all of the MIDI controllers. So we have a new option here, which is off. Off disables the MIDI input and the MIDI through. So when this is set to off, the 5-pin is no longer going to receive MIDI, and that's really useful if you've got this hooked up and you're using interface mode, which we'll cover at the end of the video. The rest is the same. You select the channel that you'd like the DMC or the DPC to listen on to receive messages that are incoming. For most practical purposes, off is going to be fine. If you have a special application where you're using The MIDI-Y cable, for example, like this guy over here. Sorry about the noise. This guy over here, the MIDI-Y cable. Then you'll need to turn that on and select the correct channel. Access. This is a new configuration for our access mode. We introduced access mode in version 1.03a, but we didn't have really any way to configure it. This access menu lets you choose the MIDI channel that you'd like access mode to send MIDI notes on, and we'll cover access mode in just a second. And then finally, prot. This is memory protection. If you set this to off, then the DMC or DPC will allow you to save your presets. If you set it to on, it will prevent you from overwriting your presets. This is really handy in a live setting. It disables all the saving stuff so that you can't accidentally overwrite your stuff in the middle of your set. We leave it off by default, but you may want to set it to on if you're out, playing a gig. And finally, fact. There have been a lot of questions about the factory reset. People get this and they hit the button and the display goes blank and they say, oh, it's broken, I can't get it to work. It's not broken. What we've done is we've buried the commands in here so that you don't accidentally clear out your settings when you didn't mean to. So if you're in the fact and you hit this save button to go in, or if you're on the smaller controllers, it's either the center button or the upper right button, and you press the A or B buttons, you'll eventually get to the things that you can reset. So this resets the configuration. So this resets everything in the setup menu. It leaves all your presets and all the names of your presets alone. Doesn't mess with them. Preset. This overwrites your presets. It sets them all back to their default values. So they'll go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order. It leaves everything else alone. Name clears out preset names and bank names, but it leaves the contents of the presets and banks alone. And finally, all does exactly what it says. It clears out the configuration, which is everything in the setup menu, all the presets, all the preset names, all the bank names. This will set your controller back to its factory default settings. Sometimes we recommend this after a firmware update, but it really depends on where you start and where you're ending up. There's some cases where we've moved things around in the memory and a factory reset is really required in order to get the new firmware to work correctly. Like it'll be looking for something in a specific place, and if it doesn't find it, it freaks out. So sometimes we have to reset all. Generally, you don't have to do this, but it's pretty dangerous, so that's why we stuck it away in here. To reset, when one of these is on the screen, if you hit the save button, you don't have to hold it. If you hit it, the controller will reset. I don't want to do that because I like the way my controller is set up and I don't need to reset it. So to get out of this menu without resetting, just go to one of the blank screens, any of them, and hit the save button again, and it'll take you back out. So to recap, fact, hit the button, tap right or left until you see stuff on the screen, and then tap the button to reset. To get out without resetting, go to a blank and exit. Access mode. This is something that we had been asked for by several folks. People were asking, oh, can I get a Gen 3 with the Ableton firmware? And I really want the old Ableton firmware. We don't have that many folks using it, just because the regular firmware is really powerful and does all kinds of cool stuff. But there's certain folks out there that really just want this to be a controller for, your laptop or your iPad. So you set USB to MIDI, or you can use a MIDI interface with your computer or iPad, whatever works best for you. And then you hold the D button to go to the access mode. The screen's going to say X, and then it's going to show 00A. So these are the bank number, and this is the clip number. So you have A, B, C, D, and then E and F. And these all send MIDI notes, so you can go into the MIDI mapping mode in Ableton, which is Command M or Control M, and you can assign any of these notes to launch any clips or perform other functions. The fave and tap buttons on the 8, you'll see they make it blank out. They send MIDI notes, but they send the same MIDI notes in every bank. So they always send MIDI notes 126 and 127. And we recommend you use these for things like start and stop of the transport or tap tempo, things like that. So they're dedicated. You can use them for the same function in every bank. You can use them for up and down or whatever suits your workflow best. So it's really cool to have 6 MIDI notes, but what if you need more? Well, you just hold the bank up button, and now you're in bank 1, and look, you've got 6 more MIDI notes. Bank up again, 6 more MIDI notes. If you have an expander switch, a PBA EXP or a 2-button momentary foot switch, you can set multi-jack 2 to the 2 bank setting, 2 BNK, and in this mode the extra foot switch will just bank up and down, and you've got these as dedicated buttons. So you have 6 buttons all the time, you don't have to hold anything, you can instantly get to the next bank. So one of these plus a PBA EXP or a 2-button foot switch is a really versatile combo for controlling Ableton Live. To get out of this mode, you just hold down any of the other buttons that you would normally hold down to go to preset or bank mode or anything like that. So you've always got it. You can use it to launch clips. If you prefer to launch a clip as part of a preset, you can do that too. Set one of your devices, for example, in E or F, to the MIDI note device driver, and then every preset can call up its own bank. So that's a pretty useful thing to have. So there's a couple different options for controlling Ableton, or Loop Community Prime, or MultiTracks Playback. So that's access mode, which is new in version 1.03 and up on the 6 and 8 only. All right, and there's one final change. We've implemented a feature that we've had a lot of requests for, and that is what we call a don't change or don't care preset option. So when you're in the preset mode and you go to a new preset, it's going to change all of your devices. So even if you want, for example, to have everybody be the same in a song, and your A device to be on preset 1, and then your B device to be on preset 2, and then maybe your C and D devices will change. They're all going to change. They're going to load new presets. Some devices will handle that well, and some devices won't. So what we've done is we've added this new facility so that when you go to save a preset, you can actually pick a preset, you can pick a bypass state, and now if you want, you can actually go down below, see here's 0A, you can go down 1 below the minimum, and we have this DC. This stands for don't care or don't change. And then when you save the preset and it loads again, this A device will not do anything, but it will engage or disengage based on how you set this. So now you can actually have a bank that only controls a single device. So you basically set everything to don't care except for the device that you want to change. So now you could have a bank that is 4 different sounds on your timeline, and another bank that's 4 different sounds on your big sky, and etc. So you can actually tailor each button in each bank to engage or disengage different presets at will. It also works on the 3XL and the 4. It's not as useful because the presets are more or less always accessed in order, so you can run into some issues with that, but it's really great on the DMC-6, the DMC-8, and the DPC-5 Gen3. All right, and the last thing we're going to cover today is the new interface mode. We've got a video floating around out there from the Gen 2 controllers showing a Gen 2 controller updating the firmware on Mobius. That's cool, but Strymon have changed the way that they handle firmware updates. So instead of using a sysx librarian or send SX on your Windows PC, they're now using either the Strymon preset librarian SPL or Nixie. Those both require a bidirectional link. They require MIDI send and receive, transmit and receive, in and out. And the old Gen 2s don't have that, but the Gen 3s do. So we have a cable that's our MIDI-Y cable, and this is basically 5-pin MIDI on one end, and it splits up to 2 5-pin MIDI on the other, and it's got some special wiring inside. But you just connect this to your Gen 3 MIDI port, which is both input and output, and then you don't have to change any settings in the controller itself. You just have to wait until it comes up, and then when it boots, hold down the bootloader entry button, whatever that is. On the 3XL and the 4, it's either the center button or the upper right button. On the 6 or 8, it's the save bank up button. On the DPC-5, it is the far left button, the save and bank button. So when you hold that down, the controller is going to set itself into this interface mode, and everything on the controller is locked out and won't do anything. But now you can plug a USB cable into the USB port, and it will show up as a MIDI interface on your laptop or iPad with a camera connection kit, etc. So when it's in interface mode, this is optimized for high-speed MIDI transfer, bulk transfers. The Strymon presets and firmware are really large sysx messages, and in interface mode, the DMC and DPC Gen3s are capable of transmitting those. If you have a smart clock Gen 3, you don't even need this MIDI-Y cable. You can just use it as is. What a lot of folks like to do is take the MIDI out from this and run it into their first Strymon device, and then they run Mobius Timeline Big Sky, and then out of the Big Sky, you just run this back, and now you have this big MIDI loop, and you can leave that hooked up all the time. And when you want to manage your presets with Nixie or a Strymon preset library, you just plug your USB cable in, set it to interface mode, hook it up to your computer, and you can arrange away. The one caveat with that, if you plan to leave the MIDI-Y cable hooked up in a loop all the time, just disable the MIDI through on your DMC. So go to in channel and set that to off. There are links in the video description to all the cables you need, including the MIDI-Y cables and the Chase Bliss multi-jack cables that are required for MIDI output from the Expression and multi-jacks. If you've got any questions or comments about this firmware update, or there's a feature you'd like to see added in an upcoming update, please post them below. Thanks for watching.